it's your girl Basia, and it's Tuesday, so you know what's up. It's time for Ask Basia podcast. So today we're discussing, is the Bachelor franchise demeaning to women, in particular, women of color? And I'm joined by some phenomenal women, Dr. Sidel Ross, Mrs. Alicia Bazan, and Mrs. Lisa Lufate. Now, let me give you a little lineup about these women because, we come with heavy hitters here on the Basha platform, amazing women doing amazing things. So it would be remiss of me not to get into their qualifications. And here they are, Dr. Sidel Ross, Mrs. Alicia Bazan, and Mrs. Lisa Lufate. Let's start with Dr. Ross. Dr. Ross, who is also Caribbean American, is an anesthesiologist and pain specialist who currently practices palliative medicine. She's a classically trained vocalist, who uses music to care for patients living with life-threatening illnesses. Dr. Ross's podcast, Prescription in Song, is dedicated to promoting awareness of healing potential of music and is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You learn some more about her social media platforms as we go along, and everything associated with all our leading ladies today would be in this post on Basha blog. Mrs. Alicia Bazan is also a Caribbean American professional, and she graduated from the Boyd Law School at the University of Las Vegas and is currently working as a legal professional in the insurance industry. She's an advisory member for caregivers with NCAN, a neuroendocrine cancer support group, and also the creator of Happiness handmade jewelry line that I'm rocking. I'm always rocking, for those of you all who are always studying my style, and you can get that via Instagram that we'll talk about later. Now, let's talk about Lisa Lufate. Lisa is Asian American, and she's a Deputy General Counsel for Bold Penguin, which is an insurtech startup. She's a mom of two adults, a daughter with special needs, who graduated from Ohio State University's Special Needs Program, and a son who is an organic chemistry major at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Ladies, welcome. Are you ready?
Ready.
Thank you for having me. Yes, let's go.
Gosh, I'm so excited. I can't wait to talk about this. And before we get into the topic of today, which is the Bachelor franchise, and really, is it demeaning to women? I'm so excited. I want to thank all our followers and viewers who took time off from their busy schedule last week when we talked about the fallout of the Oprah Winfrey interview with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. I enjoyed your feedback. Some of you decided to talk about the Queen and long live the Queen and so on. Hey, I'm not gonna stop your hustle. I'm over here minding my business, and we were really talking about Meghan Markle and how this whole thing affected a woman.
Right.
But if you want to talk about the Queen, keep it. I respect your perspective. Ladies, I think we might have a part 2 of that interview, so that's interesting. But today, we're going to talk about the Bachelor franchise. I don't know if you all saw this last night, but I was glued to my television set. Maybe not for all the right reasons.
And you left. The moment you left,
Alicia Bazan, I'm starting with you.
Okay.
What do you think? Is the Bachelor franchise demeaning to women, in particular women of color?
I would definitely say so. Yes. Last night I'm new to the Bachelor Nation, right? Never really watched this show a whole lot before, and just happened to kind of get into it a couple seasons ago, just because the TV happened to be on at the time. And it was just flabbergasting how, some of the things that were done, and some of these young ladies were okay with it.
Things like?
Things that were said. So specifically for last night, watching his interaction with Michelle. And when I watched this season, I believed that Michelle was his person, right? And Michelle believed that he was her person. And the way he just like they had such a great day, and then he just totally 180 degrees that night and was like, yeah, I can't get there with you. And I'm like, really? And then his excuse, not wanting to, saying, oh, well, if I had known after the fact that, you needed that time to talk to me when you requested to talk to me after I left, to kind of give me some closure.
Just to bring our viewers up to speed, you're talking about the fact that she raised, which we all found out at the finale, at the after show, that she requested some time just to clarify a few things because she was caught off guard, just like us. We thought that they were all going in the same direction. They were both going in the same direction. It turned out that they were going at a different pace.
Correct.
So to clarify that.
Right. So, like the backhanded compliments that are given, like, for example, in that situation where he was saying to her, if I had known, I would have come back to give you that closure. And then he was like, but if I was in that situation, I wouldn't have handled it as well as you did. I expected you to be mad and upset and whatever. And it's like, really? Like, why would you expect her to have that, have a negative reaction?
We will deal with his perception of a Black woman separate and apart. But I want to move on to Dr. Ross, who is not necessarily a Bachelor franchise fan, but obviously she's aware of, and she might choose to disclose why. But Dr. Ross, how do you feel about how the franchise on a whole, in particular this season, as Alicia was alluding to, how they handle women, portray women?
Yeah, so now you know what, some of you may know that I go very hard. Very outspoken, very passionate about the things that I say. And here's my issue. So I didn't even bother to look at the finale because I was so turned off from what I had seen prior to that.
Okay.
And I am looking at specifically the fantasy suites when they, the three front runners kind of
don't get Alicia started.
Their intimate time with him.
Ooh.
Listen, I was screaming.
Wow.
Screaming at the TV.
Wow.
And here's why. What really struck me was the difference in the portrayal of Michelle Young versus Rachel Kirkconnell.
Can you define that difference?
Okay, I'll say more on that. Michelle Young goes with him to a spa and she is scantily clad. She's in, I don't know if it was underwear, a bathing suit. I don't even know what it was. And, she's slathering him with butter and they're rubbing each other down. And it was something that I was like, in which century are we? Because in the history of racist ideas and racist portrayals and racist perception of women, that right there is the Jezebel stereotype.
Okay, easy. That's what's up.
Okay? Yeah. The Black woman as the hypersexual, kind of seductress, lewd, this voracious appetite for sex and sensuality. But then you have the contrast. No, I don't mean to laugh, because this really
it's amazing.
Bothers me.
It's amazing that I had separate discussions with you all, and we saw the same things at separate times.
There's Rachel Kirkconnell, who then, if you look at what their activity was, they were doing the pottery, and she was well clad, and she came across as a wholesome, modest, innocent, sweet young woman.
Who turned out to be racist, Rachel. Go on.
So there's that. And then you look at, I see Chris Harrison as a, as the face of the franchise, so to speak, because he is the host, right?
Of
so he's
all
on the
of
front
them.
line, right?
Of all of them. Yeah.
And then we all saw his interaction with Rachel Lindsey, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. The way he spoke down to her.
But before we go down that road, and I'm going to come back to you on that, because that is certainly something we must address on our platform. I want to hear from Lisa. as an Asian American woman, and I don't mean to single you out because I love our people, but your lens would be slightly different from ours, and I appreciate another perspective. How do you see it as an Asian American?
My lens is extremely different because that clip is the entirety of my exposure to the entire franchise. This whole conversation is all I know of The Bachelor because I've never seen it.
Mm-hmm. Is it that you chose not to watch it?
I have absolutely chosen not to watch it for exactly every one of these reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I have a daughter, and I personally am appalled and repelled by the very notion of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette and many of these reality shows. Temptation Island. I mean, all of these kinds of reality programs make me, they're repugnant to my sense of personhood. I just find them appalling to my sense of not only being a woman, but being a person in a relationship. And do I find them to be appalling? Yes. Do I think that they are repugnant to women? Yes. Do I think that they are repugnant to women of color? Yes. All of the above. And so I've never watched them. So I honestly would love to interject opinions about the show on a specific level, but I really can't offer anything on a specific level because I've never seen it.
And as I told you prior to this, we had a pre-discussion. I mean, you're also here just as a woman with high standards and a woman of a particular stature from a different culture, and your views matter.
Well, I appreciate that.
Your views matter. Every woman's view matter. But so go on.
Offering, I mean, hearing what you've offered and just simply hearing that from my own perspective, I think it only reinforces everything I thought from simply seeing clips on, trailers for the show. It just reinforces what I thought to be true, which is, societal norms are bad enough. And we all know what those are just by living here and living in our day-to-day lives. But it reinforces what I thought to be true, which is, for these women. And I had a friend, a woman who happens to be a young woman of color who wanted to be on The Bachelor and thought that was something to strive for. And I was, I offered her my counsel and thought, I really think you could do better. She's an attorney. And I thought, I think you can do better.
We had several attorneys this season, women of color.
Yes.
And I thought, you know what, you can do better. And she was disappointed that she wasn't selected. And I thought, I just really think you could aim a little higher than that. I just don't understand. Well, no, I do. I do understand why people do this. I do understand what they're going for. And I think it comes from not thinking personally. I think it's just not having a high enough opinion of yourself, or it's just simply liking the idea of fame and fortune and all the things that come after.
At all cost. Just a side note before I go back to Alicia regarding certain comments. But what was interesting to me from a professional perspective, as a woman of color who education is important to me and upward mobility, etc. All of the Black women that I saw at the forefront were professional women. So it said to me that even as a woman of color, you have to be overqualified for a position that clearly does not require qualifications, because there were other women whose professions did not require certification, but they were not women of color. So that struck me, as you said, that the young lady who was interested was an attorney. But I want to go back to the issue of, and Alicia tried to touch on this, and I said, pull up. But this is something. I don't know that Matt, who ended his relationship with racist Rachel, recognized that he unleashed a kind of backhanded compliment to Michelle last night, when he said, and I quote, that he was impressed with Michelle, because I think Matt was in love with Michelle theoretically in his head. She's good on paper and she was definitely wife material, not because she's a woman of color. That's not the reason. But she really was a winner for many people. She was good on paper. She's a school teacher. But Matt said Rachel impressed him because she knew as a woman of color, in situations where she could have been very aggressive, she handled it very well. Alicia, you go.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw this clip recently about how there's such a dichotomy when when women of color have certain anxieties or certain issues that we're dealing with, depression or whatever, and we're not supposed to have the similar type of reaction to it as someone who is not of color. So like if we have depression or anxiety and we kind of like try to act on it, we come off as having an attitude, we have a bad attitude. We're the angry Black woman. Whereas folks of other, there's a bit more coddling and I don't know. It struck me, to Sidel's point, how those, the types of little acts that they had them doing, the boxing, the different things, like all of that stuff is like so demeaning, I mean, not just to women of color, but to all of the girls, but it was like, it just, as Sidel pointed out, it was just kind of like heightened in that when you look at the difference in how Michelle, her outing was handled compared to how Rachel's outing was handled. I mean, at the end of the date, Rachel got fireworks. Like, where was Michelle's fireworks? Like, didn't she deserve fireworks too? Right? But yeah, that really, I mean, I think I was just so, when I heard what he said, it just had me so flabbergasted. I had no reaction. I'm like, really, dude? Like, you're just playing into everything that, like, why would you say that? Okay,
he said
you
that
think
she carried herself very well for a woman of color. And
right.
Anyway, yeah.
Like, and so, and into his defense, though, I will say that perhaps he does not have as much exposure to women of color. His mom,
because his mom is white.
His mom is Caucasian. He probably has a lot of family members. As you can tell, his dad was not in the picture. So he definitely was around his mom's side of the fammy.
He's a big man. He's a big man. That's not an excuse. I have friends. I just want to make this point. I have friends women of color, who are married to white men who has a different opinion of women of color than Matt does.
Mm-hmm. And he lives in New York City, right?
Yeah, right. That's not an excuse. Right. And they're mama and papa white.
Lives in New York. I mean, he's had a lot of time, a lot of opportunity.
So, let's talk about let's come off Matt right now for a moment and talk about the franchise in a whole. When you look at the statistics, right, where this franchise went through 25 seasons before they could select a Black man or a man of color as their lead. It took them 13 seasons to select Rachel Lindsey as the first Black Bachelorette. And now they have announced that Chris Harrison will be returning, be returning this next season. They didn't say forever. To the Bachelorette. He will be replaced by Tasia Adams, who was the Black Bachelorette who replaced, I don't remember her name.
Was it Dana, I think?
No, forgot her name. Claire. Yes, Claire. Right. During, this Claire season started taping before the Black Lives Matter movement and all the insurrection we had last year. So that was a quick fix. They stuck Tasia in, and she admitted it. It came as a surprise. She was eating donuts and she got a call. So they have now chosen, after 13 seasons and so on and so forth, they have now chosen Caitlin Bristow and Tasia, black and white. They're trying to play it safe because they can't lose that audience, and then they can't, they can't, So is it that we're finally worthy as women to host a series? Because Chris Harrison was hosting all before he gave the wrong answer, and he's now being pacified by, what's the pastor name? One of our guys. You feel me?
Michael Eric Dyson is consulting him.
Yes,
really?
Eric Dyson is giving him some good. He needs to start a university course.
I see.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for that. So I believe that we are walking backwards as women. If we are we're still celebrating the first Black, the first Asian, the first and the only, we're still celebrating things like that. And when you celebrate something that's not right, you're making it okay. What are your thoughts? I mean, I remember, before you answer me, I remember now Vice President Kamala Harris said that her mother told her, Kamala, you may be the first, but make sure you are not the last. And that stuck with me because my dream, Dr. Martin Luther King had a dream, but the dream that I have since the one that he had is to see diversity. I don't want to see all Black anything, because I'll be the reverse. I don't want to see all white anything. I just want to see everybody getting along and pushing each other up. Sada, this one is yours. What do you think about the stats that I've just outlined? Because to me, this was reactionary. This is not genuine.
Of course, I agree. The whole thing is a PR stunt.
It's contrived.
The whole thing is a PR stunt. I mean, it is clear that this franchise is not ready for that, for a real strong, solid commitment to inclusivity and to embracing diversity and celebrating diversity. That is not where they are right now. If they were there, Rachel Kirkconnell would not have been there as a contestant, because they would have had serious vetting of the contestants.
Correct.
And they would have seen these things that are racially insensitive and hurtful, and she would have been nixed. That's my feeling.
There were other problems, sorry, but it's just that Matt didn't choose them. You had one with a mugshot. I mean, I'm just saying, mugshots didn't get there.
And there were prior seasons, right? With the Bachelorette, you had contestants with other issues, again, with other related to other racially insensitive and discriminatory issues. Chris Harrison would not have said what he said if the franchise really had been serious.
Yeah.
That would have been unacceptable. And even now, they had Emmanuel Acho replace Chris Harrison.
And Emmanuel did an amazing job, I have to say. I don't know how Alicia felt about that, but I want to ask Lisa. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just think that they're not ready.
Lisa, how do you feel about the celebration of the first this and the first that and the first woman and the first Asian and the first? Is this acceptable?
I would have to respectfully disagree with your position, if I may.
Okay.
I do think celebrating the first is not necessarily equivalent to somehow discounting the rest. I think it's okay to celebrate the first and acknowledge that it will not be the last, and that it's still okay. I mean, celebrating Kamala Harris as the first Black and first female vice president right, South Asian,
and Asian and Caribbean.
And everything that she is. I think it's fantastic to celebrate all of those things and at the same time say, and she will not be the last.
Yeah.
But I think it's okay to say she's the first.
Okay.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, I watched last week and the week and maybe a couple weeks before where we were celebrating in the Super Bowl. We had the first woman to officiate in the Super Bowl. And then 2 weeks later was the first African American to officiate in an NFL game, a female. And I think all of those things are great.
Yeah.
They just, in my mind, they just become, and eventually the firsts won't be exciting anymore because they'll be the norm. It'll be like, that's no big thing anymore because it'll become ordinary. And that's when it becomes okay to stop celebrating the first, because it's like, it's the first boy cheerleaders aren't boy cheerleaders aren't a thing anymore because they're everywhere, right? So that's when we stop celebrating them anymore, because it's commonplace. But I think the first is exciting to see it happen, because then you start noticing it, and it's
Yeah.
for me, I think it's exciting because it makes me notice it, and it makes me think, oh, that's great. It's starting to happen, and I get excited, and then people start to pay attention, and then people start making it more of an object. And
Yeah.
I think it's okay. For me personally, I get excited about it.
This is why we have a platform like this. You feel me? Where women, bright, intelligent women, can come and respectfully disagree and not be seen as aggressive, because we got a mind. So I accept your interpretation, Lisa. I really do. I've always been one to celebrate the first, but I think my frustration is in now saying, hey, okay, well, we've had a first, where's the other one? But I accept what you're saying, and you're right. You know, I guess I'm a little frustrated and a little impatient with what's taking place. I just want to remind everybody, before we go further in this discussion, to follow everyone on. I'm not sure if Lisa is a huge social media personality, but you can follow your girl at Basia Powell on Twitter, Facebook, everything, and Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe to this blog, because we're going to have some more fabulous, amazing women. You feel me? Dr. Russ, tell us where we can follow you.
Sure.
Angie.
So I have my website, sidelrossmd.com. And there are links to all of my social media platforms. Sidel Ross MD on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Yeah. Abiness.
Yes, you can follow me at Abiness_designs on Instagram, where you can see some of my lovely creations, such as this. Yes. And such as these lovely Kumihimo style bracelets that I wear and I make, and
Yeah, they're phenomenal, guys.
necklaces too. So,
Yeah,
and we'll do things as you commission them. So, I'd love to decorate.
Lisa, what about you? Are you on the social?
I do not have any social media platform. I'm sorry, I'm a little backwards in that case. Just kind of,
that's
personal stuff.
That's a personal choice. I have many people who have exciting lives but acquired social media presence.
That is exactly what I do.
Yeah. So on the topic of, let's go back to the whole season with Matt and the seasons before, right? One of the things that struck me was this. First with Matt, right? I had this pet peeve all season. Whenever he was interacting with a woman, he would appear to massage their legs, right? I'm not sure whose phone is that. Is it mine? I can't.
Oh gosh.
I think it's a spare phone we have in the house, and it's going to keep ringing because I can't leave it.
Right.
Yeah. So one of the things that got me with Matt was his desire to caress the leg of every woman he was interacting with. So all season, I said, anywhere else, any other establishment, this would have been considered sexual harassment until I saw Matt doing the same thing to his mom last night.
What?
It was so sexualized when I saw him, but apparently that's his thing.
Oh wow!
So apparently he's accustomed digging into his mom's leg, like with a finger.
Oh,
Okay.
see?
I'm just saying, I've got a son. If my son was doing that to me, I'd be like, listen,
That's how
that is not okay.
Wow.
Not
And I love my son. I'm just saying.
I mean, what about a hug? I can still understand a
fun.
peck on the lip, like,
Oh, wow.
love you, mom.
Or if he held my hand a little bit, okay.
Yeah.
But rubbing my leg.
He was digging into their tie. I mean, you can go back and see the clips. It was just his thing. And I was like, this is too much. At times he just run up and, like, if he's out on a date with 6 women, I remember, or 12, how much ever, I would see him run and just, as we'd see in the crib, and bust a kiss on her next. And I'm like, well, there we go. So the thing is, in many cultures, it is common practice but I want to touch on something Dr. Ross said earlier. It's common practice to audition, as I call it, for a husband. Some cultures call it arranged marriages. No matter what you call it, it's auditioning. On this platform, we've legitimized the idea that young women have to now come and audition for a ring, for whatever you want to call it. And that, I'm not sure what message we're sending to our young girls, our daughters, or sisters, or, you know, women growing up, that they have to now audition for love, audition for affection, and they are only somebody when they go with a group of women. And last but not least, before I hand over the mic, that fantasy suite experience blew my mind. Because with all respect to cultures such as the Muslim culture or the Hindu culture, or other cultures where women have arranged marriages, I am certain their mothers and fathers don't tell them, hey, go spend the night with him and see if you're the one. I saw this man spend the night at the fantasy suite successively with 3 different women and then sent to packing. That's not right. You feel me? Dr. Ross.
So not only are they auditioning, as I said earlier, you know, it's the way in which they're auditioning and the disparate ways in which they're auditioning, because clearly, you know, one type of woman auditions in a certain way and the other type auditions differently. The other thing is that you have to audition on this particular platform, in this franchise, but you also have to kind of look a certain way.
And what way
All of these women, is there anybody there upwards of a, I'm getting to the issue of body image here. And not necessarily, you know, does anybody
That's a good point.
On that, any of those contestants, anybody above a size 8? I don't think so. I doubt it. Is anybody
above size? Is anybody above a size 4? I don't know. I'm asking.
Right.
I think the queen was above a size 4.
And then I'm waiting. Maybe one of these days somebody will show up with hair like mine. Maybe.
We had a hair similar to yours.
Okay.
Right.
It would be nice to see a bit more of that. But I
we
also
had one that was similar to my favorite style of a bald head, but you know she wasn't going anywhere. I'm serious.
Yeah, so again, it's that. It's the auditioning and how you audition and what you're supposed to look like and the definitions and standards of beauty that they're going for that really bother me. And then, yes, I mean, this idea of what happens in the fantasy suite. I have 2 daughters. Two daughters. And I would not be happy. I would be really hurt. I would be cut up, as a matter of fact. If I were to learn that this is what they are doing, you know, this is the kind of where they're competing
for love.
Yeah, for a husband.
What are your thoughts, Lisa?
Sorry.
What are your thoughts on what we just described?
I have questions, actually. So I think a lot of this has to do with the diversity issue that we're talking about. There is none. This is all American culture, right? This is all American. So the cultural questions I have are one is, I'm not aware of any culture, and I'm not saying there aren't any. I'm asking, first of all, the question I have is about the show. Are they having sex in the fantasy suite? Is that what's happening?
It is implied.
It's heavily. No, let me just say, let's give heavily a play. It's heavily implied.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are the women selecting their fantasy? Is he selecting the fantasy based on the woman, or the producers selecting the fantasy based on the women?
The producers are selecting the fantasy because they're given a card and they said, if you choose to forego your private rooms, you can have this suite. So the producers, this is produced. Huh?
Okay, got it.
For those of us in television, we know it's a production, but it went down. They had to walk shame the morning after.
Right. So that makes sense, because that was my question, was like, depending on who's selecting the fantasy, if it's the girl, then the girl is selecting the pottery or the bathing suit. But if it's the producer, then that's a whole different ballgame, right? Yep. So and then I have a whole different opinion. I mean, these girls, and do they know they obviously know when they're going in, they're going to be expected to have sex with this stranger.
They know
and they're sharing him with all these women.
Disgusting.
And it is, and I'm trying not to. I'm trying not to judge. But look, I'm a woman. I've been married and divorced. I know exactly how it feels to be, you know, selected and unselected, and what it feels like to to put yourself out there and then feel judged and not good enough based on what you look like or you don't look like. And this is damaging. I promise you, these women are going to be in therapy one day based on what they are doing to themselves.
I think so. I think so. And you know, one of the reasons we created this particular podcast, you know, is to just remind women that we have an obligation to lift each other up instead of tear each other apart or put each other down, you know. And when you see shows like this, and this is a reason that we're targeting this particular show, how does this help us when we're trying to tell women it doesn't matter what color you are, where you come from, you are beautiful. You are as beautiful as you think about yourself. You know, block out those stereotypes. You know, you have to love you first before you can invite someone else in to love you. And then you tell your daughters that, you tell your woman you're mentoring this, and then you turn on the television and boom, you see women in cat fights over going on, feeling totally deflated because they didn't get a date card for a one-on-one and they have to share this man. I would like to teach my nieces, and I would like to teach young women that I mentor, that you are not supposed to audition for a man's affection. Yeah. A man is supposed to audition for your affection, for your love. He is supposed to wine and dine you. And in fact, as I say that, I remembered when I knew for sure, my husband and I talked about this, that Rachel was going to be the one, if not in the final three, the one. She was the only one, Dr. Ross, that Matt took on a shopping spree for red bottom. No. He didn't buy her yogurt. He did not buy her Victoria's Secret. He bought her designer clothes. This is way before we even got to the, right? And she was the only one. My girl came in with her designer dresses and her red bottoms. And, you know, I have this theory that no one can take from me. That you see a man, when he loves you, he will put his money where his mouth is.
He felt that she was deserving. He felt that she was deserving.
She didn't even do anything for it.
Right? That's what he
pretty early. Alicia, did you see that part of it as well? It was pretty early.
Correct? Yeah, it was definitely early on. And you know, I was just like, wow, like
red bottoms.
Right.
You know, he's pretty sad. Like, I find him really sad.
Well, I think he had an awakening himself, based on that beard and so on that he's rocking, like you know.
Yeah, yes, I see that.
He's going through a whole black awakening because, you know, there were several people, even on Good Morning America, they outside of Emmanuel Achud, Michael Striano, so one of them, they asked him if he would be prepared to forgive her, and he totally did not hear that question.
Really?
Yeah, man. My boy riding with the Black Lives Matter movement and talking about Breonna Taylor and he's up in it. He's back there. He's black again.
All right. Yeah, but it's not helping us. It's not helping us. It's not helping us.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the wrong message is being sent. And as I said, from day one, he had zeroed in on her based on the fact that he was willing to put his money where his heart was. There were several women at that point, and she was the one who received the most expensive gifts.
Again, I don't watch the show, so I feel like I'm not sure I have a lot to offer in this respect. But from a relational perspective, I would simply say that the person that can be their best self is the person when you can be your true, authentic self. And feel like you're your best self, that's when you find a match. And if any one of those girls can stop trying to be someone they aren't and feel like they're their best self with the guy, that's the one, then she knows then he's the right guy for her.
Correct. And that's irrespective of your color.
Exactly. And if she's like trying to be somebody she isn't, then she should stop trying and be like, okay, he's not for me, I'm out. And that's what every one of those girls should be thinking, and not trying to win some contest, but be like, oh, I'm going to be just whoever I am. And if it feels right, then great. And if not, I'm out. And just be done with it at that point. But that's unfortunately it doesn't fit the model of the show. So it
I
doesn't
was
work
just
out,
about
right?
to say,
Right.
So it doesn't work like that.
I was just about to say, Lisa, the very premise of the show is to stir the pot and promote the rivalry
Oh my
among
gosh.
women and to
Right.
demean women and make women feel than less that than they are, you know. And if you go there and you're not a very confident, assertive woman who's in love, if you're not in love with yourself and understand that you're worthy. I mean, if you are all those things, perhaps you wouldn't end up there. But
Exactly.
it's just a shame, you know, that
Exactly.
this has to happen, you know, but ain't nobody got time for that, you know. I want to help women to change this stigma. And you know, in wrapping up, I just want to thank you ladies for joining me. I mean, this discussion could go on and on because as women, professional women who in some way or the other we've all been in the corporate world and we've just witnessed what other women go through. We have an obligation to lift each other up. You know, I always say to women, fix your crown, keep your head up high. You are worthy. You know, if you see another woman flourishing or struggling, you have a duty to give that woman an encouraging word, to say something beautiful to that woman, because she's also a woman. And you know what? Depending on what comes out of your mouth, it takes one to know one. Remember that. It takes
Right.
one to know one.
Absolutely.
So we are all beautiful. We are all beautiful colors in one big rainbow. That's right.
Absolutely.
So I love you, Queens. Thank you for joining me. I can't
Thank
wait to
you.
talk
Thank
to you
you
all
for having
again.
me.
And thank you guys for watching. We love your feedback. However you feel. If you're a big fan of the Bachelor Nation, let us know. We don't mind. You know, we know what's up, but these are just our thoughts. You know, it's not thoughts. It's not meant to belittle anybody, but it's meant to remind women that we need to uplift each other. So thank you for watching. That's a wrap. It's your girl Basia. Subscribe to this vlog and don't forget to follow me on IG and everywhere else at Basia Powell. I'm out. Ciao.